Please can you remind me if you'll be so kind, staring out into space, asking God to hear my case, trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? The purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeMay, and my mom also had dementia for 30 years, so I get this journey, and we are here to help. One of the things that I found most frustrating was that, where are the resources? Where are other people on this journey? And so Alzheimer Speaks talks to people around the world at all levels. That includes those diagnosed, to family members, to researchers, to companies providing services, products, and tools. We are here to help bring you comfort and kind of get you out of that turmoil when you're feeling like crisis is surrounding you and burying you. You may want to subscribe so that you can learn and share new techniques, tips, and tools to help you and your family live graciously alongside dementia. If you're a business and you want to expand your brand footprint, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. We can assist you in that process. And of course, for our listeners, again, I thank you for your loyalty and taking time to follow us and share. I love hearing from you, and I'm here to support you any way that I can. We really want to build a sense of community, collaboration, and comfort here at Alzheimer Speaks, because we think that's the only way we're going to win that battle. Now, today on the show, we are going to be talking about long-term care policies and one man's plight in terms of getting the money he deserved out of his policy. Well, now it's time to introduce our guest today, the one man who has been fighting to get his long-term care policy holder to pay out. And his name is John Sweeney. And he is 90 years old, and he has been retired for several years. And from 1963 until 81, he was engaged in financial services. And then in the early 60s, he managed the Los Angeles office for ITT Industrial Credit, which was a commercial finance firm and a money lender. And then in 1970, he transferred to St. Paul, Minnesota, which was the home office as vice president and division manager for the firm. Later in 81, he purchased a John Deere equipment dealership, which he then sold to long-term employees in 2008. John has been married to his wife, Virginia, for nearly 70 years. And I have the great honor of meeting both of them through J. Arthur's Memory Cafe, and John is just an extraordinary care partner for his wife, and Virginia is just so lovely, and her smile and giggle so bright. You can tell how strong their marriage is over that 70 years. They have 5 children, 8 grandchildren, and 8 great-grandchildren, and Virginia is now living with dementia. And John has been this amazing, like I said, care partner and role model to all of us in how he has chosen to care for his bride. So, John, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
My pleasure.
John, I always like to ask every one of my guests for a little bit of background when it comes to caring for their loved one. If you can tell people maybe a little bit more about Virginia and, when she got diagnosed and maybe some of the symptoms that you saw or that she noticed, whoever was kind of that leading force in getting the diagnosis. That tends to really help our listeners out.
Well, the first, of course, I was too close to her, probably wasn't aware of what was going on. but we had an 80th birthday party for me in October of 2010, and the children, our adult children, noticed things. And in 2011, we had a neurologist did a diagnosis, and they actually did a brain scan where they were able to see whatever it was that they thought was contributing to the disease. And they then diagnosed it as Alzheimer's in May of 2011.
Okay. Do you remember what some of the symptoms that the kids saw that you didn't kind of pick up on?
Well, getting a little confused in sentences and not remembering any, and didn't remember some of the grandchildren who were there. That she said to me, that young gal over there is going to show me where the bathroom is. That young gal was her adult grandchild.
Okay. Yep. Those little subtle things. And I think that's something that people really need to realize. And like you said, sometimes we're just too close to see it because it happens typically slowly for most, and you just kind of get used to it and kind of move forward. Now, today we're going to be talking about long-term care policies, and you had a difficult time kind of getting your company to pay out that you purchased through. Can you tell our audience when you, maybe first when you purchased and then when you filed a claim?
Well, the policy was purchased in December of 1996 and actually purchased in Arizona while we were spending winters there. And then when Virginia was diagnosed, I did what I should have done when I bought the policy. I blew the dust off it and read it. And I didn't really like what I read because so many of those policies written years ago didn't even recognize that there was such thing as memory care. And what I discovered is that the benefits required confinement in a licensed nursing home. And I wanted Virginia cared for in a memory care unit where staff was trained in dementia treatment. And so that's what started the quest, and that would have been in 2011.
Okay, and so just, basically in that short time, really, because people typically buy insurance ahead of time, it just kind of proves that point that terminology changes, and that can be just a huge battle before you in terms of getting coverage. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened in your case. What was the issue with respect to the delay of benefits, and how did you even find out there was a problem? Because sometimes I know people say they're just kind of waiting on a check, and no one's really communicating with them, and they keep calling in. So what was your process with all of this?
But see, we didn't file for benefits until 2019. So in 2011, I started talking to the insurance carrier, and I was just not getting any response. They were stonewalling it, and we have to understand that these long-term care insurance carriers do not want to pay out if they can help it because their losses are substantial. And so I started making noise. I wrote to every public official that I could think of. I wrote to every media trying to get someone interested in pursuing it. And in 2014, apparently because of all the noise I made, the Commerce Commissioner's Office of the state of Minnesota invited me to testify in a hearing on long-term care down in St. Paul on a Commerce Commission hearing. And one of the interesting things about that hearing, that this problem is so prevalent, that there were commissioners from 11 other states invited and in present at that hearing.
Wow, that is a large statement right then and there. Was that an intimidating process for you to go before them? I'm sure, one side you were excited to be called and think, oh my gosh, someone's listening. But how was that process for you?
Actually, it was, I wanted it. I looked forward to it. And my testimony at that was very simple. And it's this, that for financial reasons, I may have to commit my loved one to a nursing home, in which case the carrier would have to pay and couldn't deny the benefits. Therefore, why wouldn't they be willing to pay for the best care, which I concluded was a memory care facility.
And as far as, did they ask you for kind of a cost difference from your investigative standpoint, from nursing home to memory care?
No, I don't remember that question.
Okay.
But one of the things that came out of that hearing was an attorney that specialized in elder law had done some work for us a year or two before. Her colleague was there at the meeting and approached me and said, by the way, I have a lawsuit going against that carrier. If you would like, if you just pay me for my time that it takes in correspondence, I'll take your case on. Well, the upshot of it was, I think I paid her less than $500, and she negotiated a letter of agreement with the president of the long-term care division of this major carrier, approving Cherrywood Pointe specifically as meeting the alternative care provision, which would have given full nursing home benefits.
So, one of the questions I think, I know I have, and I'm sure our listeners have, is when it comes to the verbiage, was there anything in the contract for alternative care, or was that the premise of the lawsuit saying, terminology has changed and, what's available just isn't a nursing home, or was that actually in your contract?
Yeah. Alternative care was a provision in the policy, not well defined, but it was mentioned, or it was listed.
Okay, because things get so complicated with all of this, and especially if you're having a difficult time, getting a hold of somebody that you feel is listening at the other end. Was most of your correspondence through phone, or was it through the mail and actual letters?
Both. Then one of the provisions in that letter of agreement was that the agreement, if it wasn't accepted, would expire within a year. When I finally filed a claim and then held up that agreement, they said, oh, that had expired. And I said, no, the agreement hadn't expired. What had expired was the time to accept the agreement.
So,
but that was one of the defenses that they used. Okay.
So, oh gosh, it just, it's so silly. I mean, if it's acceptable, it's acceptable. And if you don't have to use it, they should be thrilled to death that you didn't use it sooner. That's how I look at it. I mean, it's just, but everyone tries to control things on a bilateral, format there. And it gets complicated quickly. As far as the lawsuit went with the attorney, do you have any idea of how many claims she was pushing forward at all, or?
Well, the attorney that negotiated the letter for me, as far as I know, only had one client, mm-hmm. but it was with the specific same carrier. One of the things, Lori, and I don't know if it had a lot of bearing on it, but the policy was purchased with a company that subsequently sold to the major carrier. So their policies are entirely different.
Yeah. But typically with contracts like that, I mean, when I was in real estate, you can't change the terms when you're buying them out.
Exactly.
Or when the is sold, you can't change the terms. You are purchasing what it is. And, but again, if the terminology is kind of old school and the market has changed, there has to be some way to solve that problem, because again, there are so many different options. Now, one thing I'm just thinking about, let's say all of a sudden something didn't work out with, let's say, Cherrywood, which is where you have Virginia, and you had to transfer her to another memory care. Would that be a whole nother battle then, because it was specific to one site?
No, we had asked for a provision. I had asked my attorney to negotiate a provision, and she did, saying that approval could not be unreasonably withheld. And we thought that might help some in the event we went to a similar care, long-term care provider or memory care provider.
Okay, because sometimes that happens where people end up moving around because as the disease progresses, their needs may change and stuff. And so, I mean, I think these are all really, really good points. Do you think you could have maneuvered through this without having an attorney at your side?
Oh, no way. Because, in 2 days after I filed the claim, the insurance carrier it was actually a contract nursing firm that came and evaluated. And they knew day one that was not a nursing home. But 4 months went by before they denied the claim, and with numerous requests for more information, which in my opinion was merely just a stalling, hoping probably we would give up or die first.
Well, and I hate to say it, but that just seems like a typical medical insurance policy strategy. I hear that all the time from people. I mean, and you get this is not a bill, this is not a bill. And you're like, I'd like to know what is owed and what is paid and things. And they're very complicated. And it just seems to be the process, which is horrible because it adds so much stress to an already stressful, situation. How taxing did you find this when you're thinking, here I've been paying in all these years thinking I'm covered, and then all of a sudden now you got to climb this mountain and figure out how to get down the other side. How much stress did that add for you? I would imagine.
Oh, it was very stressful because quite honestly, I didn't have a lot of confidence. Once they denied the former president's letter of approval, I felt that it was a losing cause, but we kept firing shots across the bow, thinking maybe we would hit something. A couple of interesting things happened along the way between the time that I first talked to them upon diagnosis and we filed a claim. There was a lawsuit this carrier lost where the courts held in favor of the plaintiff that because the facility had 24-hour on-call nursing, they met the standard, and the plaintiff prevailed in that case. Secondly, the insurance in Arizona has a very explicit statute that was adopted in 1990, 6 years before I bought the policy. And the terms say this: no long-term care insurance policy or certificate, if issued after July 1st, 1990, may provide coverage for skilled nursing care only, and then a bunch of other language. So the statute is very clear, which our attorney cited to them, and they still stonewalled it.
Jeez. So after you met, with the Commerce Department, did you see any changes here in Minnesota where you're located now, or hear of any kind of rumblings of changes through those other 11, I think, states you mentioned that attended?
Not that I'm aware of. That very well could be, because I think a lot of states are very interested in getting these things resolved, because if we run out of money, we would be making a claim on the state. So I'm sure they would prefer the insurance company paid.
Oh, exactly.
But interesting, after months of silence and denial, all of a sudden, I got a phone call from the carrier saying they had approved it. Now, what happened in between, that our attorney, my oldest son, and myself had all sent detailed complaints to the Arizona Department of Insurance. And because there was such a complete turnaround so quickly, my guess is that I have no proof of it. My guess is that they sent a fairly stern reminder to the insurance carrier.
Yeah, of what the statute really is, and you can't just stonewall it. Well, that's a good tip for somebody who is battling a similar situation. Go ahead, John.
And what was so interesting is that how super cooperative they were, even to the point they faxed me the agreement. They called and faxed the agreement, which would probably indicate there may have been some reporting requirements.
Yep. Yeah, because usually they'll throw that in the mail and it'll get lost and they'll throw it in again. And, the whole snail mail thing. So that's a big step there. John? Go ahead.
But let me say one other thing which may be of interest to the listeners. In the original letter of agreement in 2014, we had agreed as a compromise settlement to continue to pay premiums, and normally there's premium cessation. When we got the final agreement, premiums are waived.
Oh yeah, then they got their hands slapped pretty hard then. I'm imagining on that one. So well, that's good. That was a nice little.
And I just got a check. I had to send in fact, they continued to take premiums out of our bank account for 2 months after I'd signed the agreement, and I sent a rather stern reminder. I did this week get a check for the past premium payments.
Oh, good. But boy, you have to write them to get the right things done. Now, if somebody, and I know you're not an insurance agent or anything, but just person to person, if you had a friend who was looking at purchasing a policy, what advice would you give them to really, just not just discuss with their agent, but make sure it's addressed in the contract?
Well, I would of course invite them to read it before they signed it, but also make sure that it's up to date with the type of care that's available. Because 30 some years ago, I don't think there was a very common practice anyhow of memory care. Never heard the term, and so I would make sure that the policy covered that, because when I bought the policy, I didn't think about Alzheimer's. I thought about heart attacks, strokes, and other things.
Sure.
But today we know that Alzheimer's or any form of dementia is a very likely thing to happen in a family.
Exactly. And so, with a lot of contracts I know that I've signed over the years, they'll say, well, this is the way they're written, and we can't make adjustments to that. But fighting that point up front would probably
by all means
would be worthwhile. And I would imagine, one of the best ways to find out, because when you don't need this stuff, you don't even really know what's out there. So
that's right.
So go visit. Go ahead and visit a nursing home. Go ahead and visit a memory care community, and ask the social worker in terms of what is available. We're looking at purchasing this, and they would be more than glad to talk with you and give you some current terms. I think I don't see that being an issue for most people, because they would love to help you down the road, and they know if you've got that extra income coming in, it makes it easier for everybody in that process. But yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. Would you recommend that in purchasing that they use an attorney to review that document? Do you think that would be helpful or not?
Oh, I think it would. And probably cost you less than $200 to have an attorney review it. And then also I would have people, when they're thinking about buying insurance, be aware of the kind of fights that I had could exist, because different levels of care do exist now, and be aware, or just be sure that they are covered, that there's not an out in the policy. Because it's terrible to pay premiums for 25 years and then be denied.
Yeah. Well, and even with home care too, if any of that is covered. But I think if you're going to go to an attorney, a lot of times people go, well, I'll just go to my family attorney or I'll go to my friend's attorney. But I would highly recommend that you go to an elder law attorney who is used to dealing with all of the things that can come into play as we age.
Money well spent.
Yeah. And as illness hits, to me, it's night and day in terms of things, because just, with an attorney, a doctor, really any profession, one can only know so much when the arena is so big. And so to spend that extra money on going to a professional that's educated and up to date with not only what the laws are, but what's available in terms of care and lifestyle, and they can help look at your whole package too. And they may have some references of policyholders that they've used and they've had really good luck with, and others maybe not so much, that they would be, willing to kind of steer you in the right direction too.
And as you pointed out earlier, be sure that it's someone that specializes in elder care or elder law, because it is a specialized practice.
Yep. And when doing that,
as a matter of fact, our attorney that negotiated the agreement, when it came down and looked like we were going to have to sue, she recommended us to a competitor, a colleague that specializes in litigation of this type of case. And she had our best interest in mind, that she recommended someone that is very skilled in litigating this type of case rather than her doing it herself. And I respect her for that.
Oh, definitely.
And we had a meeting set up 4 days after I got the agreement signed. The meeting was scheduled with the special litigant, and we never went.
Wow. Well, and it shows the power of the letter of the law, when they know, okay, they're getting serious now. This isn't just talk. Now it could really cost us some additional money. And it probably gets raised a few levels there in terms of how they're going to look at that, and it gets to their pool of attorneys, where before it's just, sitting in the circle of the everyday employee, who's been taught to either accept or approve or deny the claim, and gets it a little bit accelerated. So another level gets pulled in, which was lovely. I remember when, because you were, you kind of shared your story with us over time regarding this whole situation with the memory cafe members, and everyone was really interested in this and ears perked, and we remember you coming in just so happy and so surprised that it was settled and you got the check in the mail, and it was a huge big deal, and
relief,
and rightfully so, and to know that you won something that you shouldn't have even had to fight to begin with, I think can be draining and exhilarating at the same time when it's all over and goes in your favor with that.
And I'm sure a number of people that face this kind of thing just give up. And my suggestion to anyone that has this kind of fight, don't give up. Don't ever give up. Keep fighting. Keep firing anything you can think of, if you're in the right, because there are precedent lawsuits out there now that didn't exist a while ago. Mm-hmm. So people are winning these fights now.
Yep. And that's really wonderful. I'm so happy that you shared this story with us, because again, there's a lot of people out there, groveling, should I or shouldn't I? And does this work, or will it, won't it? What does it really mean? Because again, it's new territory, and I think your recommendation of maybe pulling in an attorney, it's well worth it to make sure that what you're paying for is what you think you're paying for, and then trying to address problems before they arise, and maybe getting it elevated if you're not finding the right terms, and just asking for that supervisor, and just trying to get those clarifications so you don't have to fight when you really, really need it. And if there was one person at the state, you had mentioned in Arizona that you, and I think you said your son and your attorney all wrote letters to the State Department of Insurance. Was that who it was, John?
Yes. And they have a website where you can file the claim. It's not difficult to do. I'm sure other states have the same thing.
Okay. That's, again, a really, the state who's licensing them, they can get their attention much faster. And if there's penalties involved, but just even knowing they're being investigated, is kind of a mark against them. And I'm sure that
particularly in this case where they clearly were in violation of the statute.
Yep. And, and as regular citizens, we don't always know those statutes. And
I think you had suggested to me, early on in this fight, one of the reasons that the states might get interested in it is that if the insurance company pays, they won't have to.
Exactly. And their budgets, they're looking at those things really closely. How families are spending their money, in terms of gifting away. And if there's a policy in place, they want it upheld, because this is big money. And, they're trying to protect the state themselves in terms of where those funds go. So, yeah, you never know when you're going to find a friend on your side sometimes in this process. But I think these are some really good pointers for people to look at. And there's several different companies out there doing this. And I think you need to compare too. I know, when I bought, and you can go through a broker who a lot of times will have multiple policy holders that they can represent. And then you've got some that are just pushing their own thing. And of course, they're not going to typically say anything bad against their own company. So you have to look at some of the biases out there too, in terms of what you're getting and what can you really believe. And your recommendation, as silly as it might sound, is like, read the policy. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't read contracts. I don't care if it's buying.
And I've been guilty of that.
Buying, insurance, buying a house, buying a car, buying all kinds of stuff. And, in this day and age, you need to know what you're signing. I mean, this is an investment for your future, and protecting your assets, and also hopefully protecting the emotional and physical well-being of your loved one, to be able to give them the best care. And
my experience doesn't make me anti-long-term care, because I think people have no idea what they may face in the future that could literally wipe out a lifetime of savings with something like dementia or a prolonged a stroke or something like that. So I would advocate purchasing long-term care insurance, but do it a lot more intelligently than I did.
Yeah. And typically too, with long-term care, the earlier you do it, the cheaper it is, the longer time.
Exactly.
And I have heard if you purchase it under 50, that's really the best time to be able to go ahead and get good rates. But also know, when it comes to dementia, there's a lot of people getting diagnosed earlier and earlier with this disease as well. And, you can't purchase it after the fact. Well, you probably could, but then you probably couldn't afford it either.
No way of affording it, right?
Exactly. Well, anything else that you want to share with our audience, John?
No, I think that fairly well covers it. And just, I repeat again, don't give up. Don't ever give up. Keep fighting if you're in the right. And I think the fact that there was 11 other commissioners from 11 other states attended that hearing indicates that many states are working on things that will help policyholders in the future. They wouldn't have come to the meeting if they didn't know there was a problem.
Well, and it's nice just to hear that there's a collaboration of trying to figure out what's going on too. That this is...
It's a major problem.
Yeah.
The carriers are screaming they're losing billions because they didn't underwrite it properly. They were writing policies without any empirical data. And the policyholders are screaming, but my premiums have tripled or quadrupled.
Yeah. Yeah, and some would say, well, then don't give your higher ups as big a bonuses as they're getting either, you know. So everything is irrelevant. But yeah, John, if there was anybody out there that listening that wanted to talk with you further, it could be a reporter, it could be a person who is struggling with their own situation, would you be open to corresponding with them?
Oh, certainly. Anything that I could do to help somebody avoid the kind of anxieties that I had over 8 years.
Okay. And what contact information would you like to give out?
Well, my email address, it's jrsvhs70@gmail. And so I'll give it to you phonetically. That's John Richard Sweeney, Virginia Hope Sweeney, 70@gmail.com.
Wonderful. So John, then I'm going to have you verbally give your address, if you don't mind, your mailing address.
Okay. It's 2680 Lexington Avenue North, apartment 325, Roseville, all one word, Minnesota, 55113. Okay.
In case anybody's jotting it down, sometimes it's just nice to hear it one more time.
2680 Lexington Avenue North, apartment 325, Roseville, Minnesota, 55113. And you have my name.
Yep, John Sweeney. Well, this has been so helpful, and I really appreciate your time, sharing your story, because I think it'll help a lot of people in terms of long-term care. And it's nice too that you said, hey, I'm not against it. It just, you need to know what you're getting into, which we should be concerned with any type of contract that we are entering into.
Yeah, and there may be something in our strategy. We just fired all kinds of shots, and we don't know which one would work, but we think we know which one did work. Again,
I just want to give you a pat on the back for just what a wonderful care partner you are, and a beautiful example of a loving patient husband, caring and just advocating for his lovely wife. It's helped a lot of people in our group, and I'm sure many others that you've met along the way, just with how gracious and loving you are. So thank you for being a role model for all of us.
Oh, my pleasure, and thank you for the good words.
Yeah, well, they come from the heart, John. You're amazing, you know that, or you should. It's been mentioned multiple times with members of our group, and how much people have learned from you and your willingness to share. I think what I'm going to do too is so that people get to see a little bit more of Virginia, is I think I'm going to add the clip to the Memory Cafe so people can see how vital and beautiful Virginia is, and see you two as a couple. And your daughter is in that clip as well.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that.
And that's the love of my life for 7 decades.
Yep. 70 years. That's incredible. Incredible. Says a lot about both of you. So, again, thank you so much, John. And we'll see you at the Memory Cafe very soon.
All right.
Okay.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So, in wrapping up, I just want to again thank all of our listeners. I just so appreciate your subscriptions, your shares, your likes in terms of spreading the information that we disseminate here on Alzheimer Speaks Radio. And please check out our main site, Alzheimer Speaks, where you can find out more about different projects and initiatives and kind of tap into everything we do, from the Dementia Chats, which are videos of a panel of people with dementia. And we discuss all kinds of topics, from symptoms to pain, to how they feel they're accepted or treated in their communities, their frustrations, their likes, how they want the world to look at dementia and deal with dementia, not only for themselves, but for their families. And those are all free. You will also find information again on memory cafes and speaking and training, if you are in that realm, from keynotes with conferences to one-on-one consultation with family members, all kinds of stuff out there. And then again, it is the holiday season, and if you're looking for a great gift idea, please check out the book Parental Dementia, A Guide Through All the Difficult Questions. It's by Keith Gallus, who's spent over 20 years helping families work through all the questions that keep popping up throughout this journey. And the book has some great worksheets in the back that can help you organize your thoughts and your needs. And you can go to parentaldementia.com to purchase the book. And there's a code you can enter. Just enter Lori, Lori, and you'll save $5.99.
Hi, everyone. This is Meredith from the Senior Fitness with Meredith podcast, where I discuss all things for seniors, from fitness, your health and wellness journeys, how to be all over strong and beyond. I also have my mini podcast called Motivation with Meredith. It's a great, quick motivational pick-me-up for your days. Join me, listen now, search for Senior Fitness with Meredith on your favorite podcast platform.